Good morning, Coach. How are you?
Good morning,
Hey,
Terry.
Curley.
Well,
How you doing?
doing fine.
Um, these new hires that coaches made at Alabama, I made the statement a minute ago to Cecil Hurt that maybe a little bit older guy that's kind of not going to move again for a while, uh, going to, is enjoying coaching, not just dying to be an OC or a DC coordinator. Maybe a little bit of a different change for coach. Comment on that.
Well, I think some guys, as you go along, first off, you need to be a good coach or need to be considered a good coach. And I imagine Coach Saban's got a lawyer's filing box there with names in it. So there is something to that, and not worried about him leaving. But the biggest thing is, he can coach, and the guy coming in, he knows the talent is going to be there. So I think it's a positive for these guys. I don't really know them. I've heard of them, so I really don't know. But I'll promise you, Coach Saban's going to hire some guys that can coach and yeah, and I'll say this. You hear a lot about recruiting. Well, Alabama, I really don't care if he's a young coach or a guy's been at it 20, 30 years. When Alabama goes on the road and contacts those 4 and 5 stars, they're going to be interested. Might not get them, but I don't. I think Nick's going to hire some older guys because of recruiting and coaching. But
Yeah.
they'll be interested in Alabama. I promise you that.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you think that they brought in pretty much an entire new staff? They moved some guys around last year, but it just, for whatever reason, didn't seem to work. Or there's some situations, some guys leaving, maybe a few guys, obviously Loxley, that was a move up, but guys took some lateral moves. I think there's some guys that weren't asked to be back. Do you think he feels like, of course, hindsight's 2020, but I can't imagine he brought Enos and Gaddis in to work with his quarterbacks and the offense and have to be hiring guys again. Do you think Coach feels like he made a few mistakes on some of these hires?
That's a tough one. There, all I know is, throughout the season, the so-called experts and the fans themselves that, going 14-0 all season long could be possibly the greatest team in the history of Alabama, the greatest team, and possibly one of the greatest teams in the history of college football. So that didn't seem to be that problem during the season. And I know one game can affect a lot of the minds, and it just shocked me that all of a sudden these guys couldn't coach. But I, who knows? And you're not going to find out from Coach Saban. He's going about his business, and some left on their own, I guess. Everything that pops up out there, and some were asked to leave, but Coach Saban is very, very demanding. I think I mentioned that to you last week, and so if it's a perfectionist attitude or approach to it, so I imagine some of them left on their own, and some were asked to leave, but I don't know if we'll ever know that for sure.
Yeah, he does a good job of. He doesn't care what people think, and he doesn't ever try to leak out his side of the story to make himself look better. He just keeps looking ahead, and it seems like, I'm sure there's issues in there, but he seems to be able to handle those. A lot of guys will try to. You don't ever hear him badmouth anybody. I mean, I've never heard him say a word about Lane Kiffin and how that went down, letting him go there the week of the national championship. He pretty much just bites his lip. He doesn't care what people think. He doesn't try to get things out there to make himself, that's why he did it. He doesn't care. He just keeps moving forward, doesn't he, Curley?
Yeah, and I guess you could say openly, I think you'll hear that behind closed doors, one-on-one with a particular coach, and may be hard on him, and will never get out to the media, and so in that meeting, you might want to start looking for another job, or the individual just says, I've had enough of this, enough of the butt chewing behind closed doors, and I'm gonna move on. Some of them's wise, probably tell them. Like I know one guy on one particular said, she told him, said, "You stay, me and the kids are gone."
Well, yeah.
And so there's been some situations like that. But it's I don't know if I've ever seen so many coaches exit and leave in the last 2 years on any staff ever.
No doubt.
Curly, I asked Cecil Hurt this, and is it more now agent to agent when you're trying to hire somebody than it is AD to AD, or me calling, or say Coach calling the Tennessee coach or the Georgia coach and saying, I want to talk to Joe Blow? Where, and I guess it's different with every coach maybe, but is the agent more involved with it now than say the ADs?
Oh, I probably to a certain extent. Now, when you go back and look at these modern day coaches, you got assistant coaches. They got agents, and communication between the assistant coach and his agent, and they're making calls and doing that stuff. And I mean, it just blows my mind. The assistant coaches have got agents, and so the agents are pretty much in contact with the possibilities out there for a head coach looking, or assistant coach looking, and I still think the names are given to the AD, and the AD may look like he's doing all the work, but we live in an modern day world now.
We're talking with Coach Curley Hallman, Coach Kirby Smart. He's in his mid-40s, I guess, 44, something like that. But he's a real emotional guy. I mean, he is he is out there, and I think he probably like Coach. I think he's even more emotional than Coach, where he can lose his temper. I heard from a pretty reliable source that Chaney, I think he was 57 or 58, they said, man, this guy screaming and yelling at me, I'm too old for that. I'm not for all that. This young guy, does he need to tone that stuff down just a little bit in order to make good decisions during the game? I think sometimes you got to be calm on the sideline, and also a younger guy like that just jumping on his people all the time. Does he need to maybe step back and maybe control that a little bit?
Maybe to a certain extent. Kirby is a ball of energy, and when you see that energy go away, then you're going to probably see the the team kind of decline a little bit. But Coach Saban is a little bit of a ball of energy, but Kirby's an old DB coach, and he's, like I said, energetic, but to a certain extent, so much poise on the sideline and composure. I say that I tell people this: probably the best I've ever been around. That I'd be justified in saying that poise on the sideline and decision making, far and away, Coach Bryant. You never saw Coach Bryant very seldom get riled up or anything, and he was in total command on the sideline. But same body language and same personality 99% of the time.
Curly, offense coordinators, and I know they all have different personalities, but are there some that just don't even though you have an offensive meeting, that just don't, they're gonna be the OC, they're gonna be in charge, they're gonna run the things they think are best, they're not gonna rely on anybody? Or I don't know about Jim Chaney. I think you're right. Whoever said it about him being aggravated with Kirby. But do the OCs listen to what other people have to say, most of them, or is that something where the OC, just because of his personality and of his influence, he does it all himself?
Well, the offense coordinator, he better be listening to those other four guys or whatever, and guys that's got suggestions and input and knowledgeable, and that, of course, that's going to come from the head coach, and head coach is the head coach, and offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, whoever, they better be listening to those other guys, because I believe there's 4 or 5 guys in there that make the total for that offensive staff, and if they're not listening, then it can be a tough atmosphere to work in, and when you got that, some guys will be, what the hell, I I'm going somewhere else where I can feel like I'm contributing. And so, of course, it all falls back on the head coach. And you better be listening. Of course, everything comes from the approval of the head coach.
Am I gonna excuse me, Barry? Am I gonna go in as a recruiter against Coach Saban in a roundabout way and say, be darn sure, son, that you're gonna enjoy playing for some of those guys there? It's a pretty. Am I gonna hurt myself if I do that with a kid?
Of course, Wimp, as you well know from both of you, from the basketball recruiting aspect of it in the home, at the school, it's the same in football. And when you got that young man one-on-one or with the parents, bringing out things that are considered negative, but that's all part of recruiting. It's been going on forever. I've known coaches that would start rumors, and it'd be on the East Coast today, and it'd travel to the West Coast. And that stuff's been going on forever and ever, and it will continue. You try to find out all the little things that could sway the kid or keep an interest in you. But then, of course, the key is when the head coach comes in and the impression that he makes with the kid, with the parents, or with the guardian, the decision makers, and Coach Saban is great at that and throws out.
How is Sark going to be different from Loxley coming from the pros? Is he going to come in with pro sets and stuff? What's the deal there?
Well, I think with the way the game is changing nowadays, the old deal, two backs and one tight end and all that stuff. That's still a great offensive set, but the game is changing so much now with the multiple offensive sets, 2x2, 3x1s, and one back, and so I think the game is really changing. That's the reason there's so much interest. For example, with a quarterback that's as talented as Kyler Murray, he gives you an opportunity to spread the ball out, and the game is changing now. Some people are going to stay with the old-fashioned deal. I mean, you watch the New England Patriots. I mean, they're one back and doing things and bunch sets and pick plays, and that's another thing. Anytime there's a bunch set where all the receivers are close and you're down on the goal line, you better be looking for a pick play or just throw that out and say there's no such thing as a pick. But offensive coordinators, I think the new guy coming in, who, of course, he's been there. He knows Coach Saban. Coach Saban knows him well. Plus, I think there's a tie also coming in with, is it the offensive line coach or somebody that?
Yeah, Kyle Flood. Yeah.
And so that's a little bit of a chemistry there already, and I think that's a plus for Coach Saban, what he wants to do offensively, and they're going to do what he wants to offensively. But I think he's going to listen to those philosophies and those schemes.
We're talking with Coach Curley Hallman. Coach, there's people around here, anything Coach Saban does, they always find the positive. I've heard people talking this week saying, this is going to be the best staff Alabama's ever had. I think they were saying the same thing last year. Yeah. But Charles Kelly, we just talked about Kyle Flood from the Falcons, Charles Huff from Mississippi State, Sark's coming from the Falcons. I think Butch Jones, Sal Sinceri, who's been here, so he understands Coach Saban's way. Do you know any of these guys, and will this be the best staff that Nick Saban's ever put together? I think it's a little early to say that.
I'm not sure. There's Sal. I think I crossed paths with him somewhere years ago, and the thing is his son still coming? So is it?
Yeah, as a GA, yes.
There's a guy coming in. His title is a GA, but that young man can coach, and he knows what Coach Saban wants in the scheme in the secondary. It would shock me that he winds up being the safeties coach as a GA.
Yeah,
heck, he's no little old spring chicken running around out there. He's played, was a good player, understands the scheme. He's had coaching experience. So, father son, that's a plus. You get one free. with the Suns.
Well, when Bo Davis gets out of jail over where he is on his NCAA violations, he'll be back in Alabama.
Yeah, but he's at the Detroit Lions. I mean, he's not like he's at. he's not down at Texas San Antonio.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry. Okay.
No, he's in the NFL now, so he ain't like he's got some chopped liver job.
No, Bo's
a really good coach. He's one of my former players, and we bailed him out with the NCAA years ago at LSU. They made a poor decision and ruling that he was ineligible. He tested positive and for something there that was in McGee, Mississippi's home. And boy, he's a big lifter. Tore a pec muscle lifting, and it was proven. I mean, we go up on a Friday and they give us about 45 minutes and at the NCAA office and all that stuff. On the plane coming back, I told the attorney, I was again, can you go ahead and what's the possibility of getting an injunction, et cetera, against the NCAA on this kid, and we're going to play him. He said, good idea, we're going to do it. Never heard back from the NCAA, but he was a good player, been around good position coaches, and Bo he is a heck of a football coach. And so I don't know, once those guys get in the NFL, as you well know, they kind of enjoy that security and staying there.
Well, Curley, as always, we appreciate it. You got a story for us before we let you go?
Oh, gee whiz, I hadn't prepared one.
Oh, don't worry about it.
All right, Curley, tell me this. Tell me who the football coach at Alabama is going to be that's not besides Dabo.
Oh, my goodness. Now, I hadn't thought too much past Dabo because of so much talk about Dabo being it, which I don't believe it will be Dabo. It's going to be somebody that's got some ties with Nick Saban whenever he does decide to retire, 5, 6 years, 7 years, whatever. So that's a good question. I have no earthly idea. You have to go back through the Coach Saban tree of people he's been around, and of course you can rule out Kirby. He's at home. There's a possibility, depending on what Jeremy Pruitt, the success that he has at Tennessee, that's a possibility. And shoot, who knows? If Freddie Kitchen wins the Super Bowl, they might bring Big Thick back home.
Great.
He's got half the Alabama staff out there with him now. So
yeah. I hope he doesn't wear his baseball cap at the press conference.
Oh, he's gonna wear that. That's who he is. You can't change who you are.
Yeah, he's old Big Thick he's a unique guy, heck of a football coach, and he's going to be consistent. We talked about that I think last week. He knows his stuff, and he's mentally tough.
And Stalin's going to take credit for him too.
Oh yeah, that's usually kind of the way it works. You love to see your own people be successful and and all that kind of stuff.
Well, Curley, as always,
thanks,
great
Curley.
stuff. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Y'all have a great week and survive the bad weather.